The first time the light hit her living room windows, it felt like justice finally learned how to shine. But before that moment, before the quiet satisfaction and the uneasy knot in my chest, there was a letter taped to my door on a freezing Canadian morning, the kind where your breath feels heavier than your thoughts. The HOA logo sat at the top like a stamp of authority, and in neat printed words it told me I had 30 days to remove my solar panels. Non-compliant, eyesore, against community standards. I stood there in my driveway, snow crunching under my boots, staring up at the panels I'd installed with my own hands. They weren't flashy, just clean, black rectangles catching a pale winter sun. I didn't put them up to make a statement. I put them up because electricity bills kept climbing, because winters were getting longer, and because my daughter asked me one night why we didn't do something good for the planet if we could. That question stayed with me when I signed the loan papers and climbed the ladder. The HOA president lived 3 houses down. Perfect lawn, perfect smile, and a habit of reminding everyone how lucky we were to live in such a well-managed community. When I went to talk to her, she didn't invite me in. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, and explained the rules like she was reading from a script she loved. Solar panels might be fine in theory, she said, but they didn't fit the aesthetic. Property values mattered more than personal projects. When I mentioned environmental benefits and rising energy costs, her eyes drifted past me, already done with the conversation. For weeks, I tried to do it the right way. I wrote letters. I attended HOA meetings in a cramped community hall where the coffee tasted burnt and the chairs pinched your legs. I spoke about climate responsibility, about families trying to stay afloat, about Canada's own push toward renewable energy. Some neighbors nodded quietly, others avoided eye contact. The board listened politely and then voted against me anyway. The ban stood: remove the panels or face fines. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I felt small, tired, and angry in a way that sank deep instead of exploding. Then I noticed something simple, almost funny. The angle of the panels, low winter sun, and the way light bounced off the glass. It wasn't against any rule to adjust the tilt. The panels could stay, they just had to face a slightly different direction. I didn't do it out of spite at first. I told myself it was efficiency, optimization, just a technical adjustment. But when the sun rose the next morning and a clean, bright reflection poured straight into the HOA president's front windows, I understood exactly what I'd done. She called me by noon, furious, accusing me of harassment. I listened quietly, heart racing, and told her I was fully compliant. The panels were allowed, the light was natural, I'd even checked the bylaws. What followed wasn't a screaming match or a lawsuit. It was something slower and more human. Other neighbors started talking. Some asked about the panels. Some complained about the ban. A retired couple said they'd wanted solar for years but were afraid of fines. A young family mentioned their heating bills were crushing them. The reflection became a conversation, and the conversation became pressure. Within 2 months, the HOA called a special meeting. This time, the room was full. Voices shook, not with anger, but with honesty. When the vote finally changed, when solar panels were approved with simple guidelines, I felt relief more than victory. I adjusted the panels again, angling them back toward the sky instead of her house. The light softened. The neighborhood stayed quiet. Now, when the sun hits my roof, it doesn't blind anyone. It just does what it's meant to do. Power a home, ease a burden, set an example, and sometimes, when I catch that familiar glint out of the corner of my eye, I remember how it all started. The light didn't just reflect off glass. It reflected a truth they couldn't ignore, and in the end, that's what finally shined through.